Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Turchin, Chief Product Officer at Zypro Technology. And with us today, I've got Rob Leeson, who's our Senior Solutions Architect. Rob, how's it going?
Steve, things are going great.
Okay, good to hear. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We've got a very important topic that a lot of you have asked about recently, and that's how do you integrate your NonStop data with Splunk. So we're going to run through kind of what Splunk is, how you would set up a XYGATE Merged Audit to get your data into Splunk. We'll go over some use cases of what we think you should be looking at once you get your data into Splunk to maximize the value of that data. And then Rob's going to run us through a demo of what the visualizations and the queries might look like on the Splunk end for you to really get actionable results from the data you're sending to Splunk. We love questions, we love interaction, so please ask questions in the question box, but we'll pick those up at the end of the presentation. So we're not forgetting about them, just go ahead and queue those up in there and we'll get those questions answered for you. With that being said, let's jump into our presentation with how to integrate NonStop with Splunk. A little bit about Zypro. We're headquartered in Simi Valley. That's just northwest of Los Angeles, which it's been quite warm out here the last few days, or a few weeks rather. We've got expertise in NonStop cybersecurity and cybersecurity in general, as well as compliance. And we've recently added a suite of products for database management to our portfolio. We've got a globally distributed sales and support organization structure. So depending on where you are in the world, your time zone, we've got people in your region that can help you. So obviously strong partnership with HPE. A couple of our products come packaged with the operating system, one of which XYGATE Merged Audit, which we'll talk about later on. We've got some recent new strategic partnerships with companies like SailPoint and CyberArk. If you didn't check out our latest webinar with CyberArk, I believe it was last month, please join our YouTube channel, go to our website, you can see what we're doing with CyberArk and NonStop there. And Zypro is ultimately your trusted security partner. Our strategy going forward is integration, modernization, and innovation. And what we want to do with that is really line up our objectives with your objectives. And what we're hearing from our customers, from the market, is these are the things that they want to focus on, is integrating the NonStop, making it play with the rest of the enterprise, modernizing the experience of the NonStop, which we're going to see some of that in today's presentation, and innovating, continuing to bring new solutions, new technologies, new ideas to the platform and your applications. And ultimately, this will help you address your business goals. Zypro has over 700 customers worldwide. We've got as I mentioned, we've got a globally distributed sales and support structure. So you can see just the breadth of our support reach with offices all over the world. And interestingly enough, we're fluent in over 24 different languages. So whether if English is not your first language or you're not comfortable with it, we've got probably somebody that can speak in a language that you're more comfortable with. So please let us know. And all of our development is done in-house at Zypro. All of our engineering efforts are not outsourced. We've got an engineering staff that takes care of all of your requests. Okay, so what is Splunk? We hear Splunk all the time. You've probably got it in your infrastructure. There's probably a project ongoing right now to integrate NonStop data with Splunk. If you don't have that project, you probably will see something like that in the near future if you've got Splunk in your environment. Splunk is essentially the industry-leading data analytics platform. It's your central repository for all of your data. It collects data from every source, Windows, Linux, your cloud environments, your applications, Active Directory, you name it, Splunk can consume that data. Out of the box, Splunk can handle most of the common platforms, and it has the intelligence to know what the data means. So Windows sending a data, it knows what the activity or what the data it's receiving from Windows means, or from Microsoft means, similarly to Linux, similarly to Unix. On the NonStop end, though, it was always difficult to get that data over to Splunk and have Splunk make sense out of it until XYGATE Merged Audit came into the picture. XYGATE Merged Audit is the HPE sanctioned way to get your data off the NonStop into Splunk. It comes as part of the operating system, and we'll talk about the benefits of that in a minute. Splunk is also the leader in Gartner's SIEM Magic Quadrant. SIEMs are tools that are your security incident and event management solution. These are your Splunks, QRadar, Logarithm, Alien Vault, NetWitness from RSA, ArcSight from Micro Focus. These are all part of the SIEM world, and typically you're always going to find Splunk in the top right-hand corner of the Magic Quadrant, meaning they're the most innovative and they've got the widest technology reach of anybody in that space. Splunk's ultimate goal is to make data accessible, visible, and usable. They've got very powerful search capabilities, sorting and querying capabilities. So once your data is into Splunk, you can do all kinds of interesting things with it. And if they don't support something out of the box, they've got it's customizable with integrations like XYGATE Merged Audit, which will allow you to get the nonstop data into Splunk. And once that data is there, you're going to be able to do all kinds of reporting. You can set up all kinds of interesting dashboards and show how your data is trending over time. And we're going to see some of that in a few minutes during Rob's presentation. So how do you get your data into Splunk? The key is Merged Audit. Merged Audit is the HPE way to get nonstop data and application data into Splunk. I'm not pitching anything here. I'm not selling anything here. You already own XYGATE Merged Audit. If you own a nonstop server, you own XYGATE Merged Audit. It's included with every HPE nonstop server that's shipped for the last, I would say last 10 years now. Merged Audit is your single repository for security, audit, and application data. Merged Audit can integrate your nonstop and application data with any SIEM. We're not just talking about Splunk. This presentation is specifically talking and demonstrating Splunk, but that data can go, like I mentioned, into Micro Focus ArcSight. It can go into Logarithm. It can go into Alien Vault, LogLogic, you name it, it can integrate with it. Merged Audit collects all of your data, parses it, normalizes it, enriches it to allow you to do all kinds of compliance reporting, security incident alerting, and it's extensible via additional movers or integrations to bring in additional application information. And it's fully installed on the nonstop. There's no other infrastructure required. We don't require any additional off-box servers or proxy servers or anything else you need to purchase. You just turn it on, run a couple of commands, configure it, and off you go. So why would you want to integrate your data with Splunk? What are the common use cases that we hear? Obviously, compliance and auditing. PCI DSS requires you to send all of your security data into a single repository, which then you can report from. And that repository needs to be secured, so nobody can go in there and tamper with your log files. It's essentially your source of truth when it comes to security data. Security monitoring, you want to know what's happening in your environment. So feeding all of the raw data into Splunk will allow you to get visibility into what's happening with the security activity in your infrastructure. Application monitoring, you want to know the health of your application. You want to know if anything's going to put your application at risk, if your performance degrading, or other errors that might be generated from within your application. You'll see that in Splunk. Similarly to that with operations management, anything that's affecting the performance or availability of your system, all of that gets logged into log files on your system, which then Merged Audit can pick up and send over to Splunk so you can create the dashboards to report on your system performance and health. And just overall visibility into what's happening in your environment. Incident management is a very popular use case, being able to trigger events on certain data that Splunk might detect. If somebody's altering a file or somebody's in an area of the system they shouldn't be in, things like that. And allowing you to do all types of alerting based on that evaluation and reporting as well. So we're able out of the box to capture all of these sources of data and more. Some of them will require additional movers which come with the product or might have to be licensed, but all of this data is available to XYGATE Merged Audit. Safeguard, obviously, EMS, all of our XYGATE security suite, HPE's integrated HSS, ACI BASE24. A lot of our nonstop customers are running BASE24. We can pick up the ACI BASE24 data and send that over to Splunk. and that's both classic and EPS. Including ITP Webserver or any OSS application you might have. We can pick up the log files from those applications and send those over to Splunk. And if there's an application that we don't do out of the box, let us know. We've got the framework and the toolkit in place where we can easily extend Merged Audit's capabilities to go out and capture it might be a custom application or something internal to your environment. We can still target those logs and get them over to Splunk. So we would go after those sources, collect them, process them, and then normalize them. And what that means is really, we're getting all of these disparate sources of data. Normalizing would take all of these disparate sources and make them uniform. Allow us to store them in a database and then send them in a structured format over to Splunk. And we can get that data over via syslog. We can send out SNMP traps. If your endpoint it has HTTPS APIs or REST APIs, we can connect to those. All of this can be done over a secure and encrypted channel. So we'll support SSL and TLS. So nothing's going over the wire in the clear, and everything's encrypted end to end. On the other end, we're talking about Splunk during this webinar, but that endpoint could be anything for us. As long as it can take these protocols and these formats, we can send it to IBM QRadar. We can send it to RSA NetWitness, Alien Vault, Securonics, McAfee, you name it, Elasticsearch. We can send them to an ELK stack. As long as it can understand these formats, no problem. And Rob's going to dig into what Ceph is, what Leaf is, and what the different customizable formats are in a few minutes. So with that being said, I'm going to pass the baton over to Rob, and he will take us through the details and features and functionality of Merged Audit. So Rob, I'm going to give you keyboard control here. Okay. And off you go.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, so as everybody, I hope, is already aware, Merged Audit comes with your NonStop. You should be using it today to collect at least your safeguard and your security events from XYGATE modules and things like that. The other functionality that we find customers benefit from tremendously is aggregating all that EMS traffic and anything security related that you might not think of as security data today. If you're running any of the ACI products, Base24 EPS, HP's HSS, which used to be called the HLR, or the Verifone product, you're going to want to pull that data into Merged Audit as well. Steve went on about the benefits of aggregation and all that kind of stuff. It's normalizing that data and keeping it all in one place is good for your system management, it's good for your sanity, and it will reduce your audit impact tremendously. So you need a solution like Merged Audit to, first of all, meet PCI requirements and any other requirement you can probably think of, whether it be SOX, GDPR, or anything else. You're going to need that centralized data store to meet requirements. On the other hand, the other half of those requirements says that your logs need to be forwarded off the collecting host as quickly as possible, so they can't be modified or altered by people on the host. So sending that data in real time to a SIEM, in this case Splunk, as quickly as possible is not only a regulatory requirement, but it can also push the necessity and responsibility for things like reporting, alerting, and compliance off to the centralized security function. Typically a SOC, a Security Operations Center, and a monitoring team who does nothing but monitor platforms like this. This brings the NonStop into the world of monitored and centrally managed operational systems in the enterprise, right? If you have a large enterprise where you've got Windows, Linux, mainframe, and other platforms, as well as the NonStop aggregated together, if you want to find out what's going on by a single individual or coming from a single network address, you can do that now from the main console. The benefits of this will be glaringly obvious once you start to use it. And because it costs you nothing and the overhead here is trivial, I'll show you in a minute, there's no reason not to do this. So the other thing that we use Merged Audit for is specifically to send events off host is to send to our new Security One product. If you're going to send to a SIEM, send to XS1 as well. and possibly use XS1 to forward your SIM or your front end your SIM. It's security intelligence the nonstop way, right? The SIM understands Windows, the SIM understands Linux and things like that. When it comes to the bigger players, the mainframes and the nonstops and things like that, the context kind of gets lost. Security one can help all that kind of stuff. Now, when you configure your nonstop to send data to the SIM, you can have any number of targets. If you're looking at Splunk today, you're looking at ArcSight, you're looking at LogLogic, you're looking at something else, don't limit yourself. Send your production data to the main SIM, send anything you're concerned with development-wise to a different SIM, and send everything to a third if you wish. Any of the data can be filtered and sent to any number of targets. Like I said, you can send all of it to one SIM, you can send different parts of it to different SIMs, or you can send it all to multiple SIMs. That's really up to you. So, Steve, I can't change. Let me see if I can do that. I can't, there we go. So when we say seamless integration, we mean seamless integration. The nonstop, as we're all familiar, speaks its own language. Our user IDs come out in a weird format, our objects have different names, and all that kind of stuff is strange to people from other platforms. The SIM is no different. You're going to get your Splunk team who's sitting there going, I don't know what dollar system is. I don't know who super is. I don't know why I care that the safeguard audit trail rolled. They're going to get these events and they're not going to understand them. So they're going to log them, they're going to sit there and they're going to get ignored unless you put context around them. So what we do, what we will help you do, I guess I should say, is to take that data and put it into a format that the Splunk can consume, not just receive, but consume. So we're going to give you what we call filter formats that will take the nonstop data and format it so that a user ID looks like a user ID, and an object, database object, or a program looks like a database object or a program to the SIM. To do that, we put the data into a common format. The big ones are Ceph, the common event format used or pioneered by ArcSight, the Leaf format, which is an extended format, which is very similar to Ceph, but it was pioneered by IBM and used in the QRadar product. And the third one that we support out of the box is the RSA NetWitness format. All three of these are extremely similar, but get consumed by the SIM in their own specific way. We're going to use Ceph today because it's understood by all the platforms out there, and Splunk can take it right out of the box. So once again, that stands for Common Event Format, and what it does is it assigns a key value to each data type, and then it sends it over the wire to the SIM, the Splunk in this case, and Splunk knows exactly what to do with it. We can send data over TCP or UDP. In this case, I'm going to use UDP, but we could also use SNMP or anything else that Steve mentioned earlier. If you want to secure transport, all that kind of stuff's available. But the simplest thing for you to do to get your data to the Splunk is to send it over UDP. Hopefully, there's nothing private or sensitive in your payload. If there is, once again, you're going to want to take security concerns around that, but we can certainly help you do that. Today, I'm not going to send anything to my SIM in my environment that I'm worried about at all. So let's go to the next slide. So to install the log adapter filter, so you've got Splunk, you've got Merged Audit running on your nonstop. You're collecting all the right data. What you need to do now is send it to the Splunk. It's not complicated. You need to decide whether you want to send it over TCP or UDP. For production data, I'm going to go ahead and lean towards the TCP method because you want to make sure the data gets there. But for testing and practicing and things like that, use UDP. It's lightweight. It doesn't require any infrastructure on the nonstop. Well, neither of these really do. And it's really, really fast. So the difference between the two is the fact that UDP puts the message on the wire and forgets about it. It just kind of throws it out there and expects it to arrive at the SIM. With the TCP connection method, that data goes into a queue and will only get removed when it's been acknowledged by the target. So if you need guaranteed delivery, by all means use the TCP method. It's going to make sure that your SIM receives every bit of data. If your SIM is down, the data will queue on the nonstop. With the UDP method, if the SIM is down for a week, that data is just going to go into the ether. Steve, next slide, please. Okay, so here's our big five. These are the ones that I implement for every single customer that asks. So everybody needs to know about privileged logons. We want to know who's logging on as super, directly, privilege escalation, attempts, anything. If someone's trying to authenticate as super, and whatever other sensitive IDs you have in your environment, you want to know that immediately. Access to sensitive data. The example we're going to use today is the user ID file on the NonStop. I need to know if someone's trying to modify or read that file when they're not supposed to be. So we use that as our test bed. Attempts to modify any security subsystem. This is somebody going in and modifying a safeguard global. I don't care which global it is. I don't care who it is, but I need to know that. All the PCI and other security requirements are going to say you need to log this stuff and you need to alert or notify immediately when these things happen. It might be nothing, it might be something. Number 4 is the requirement for initialization of or initialization stopping or pausing of an audit log. When Safeguard rolls over its audit trails, when an EMS log changes, things like that, we need to know that immediately. I don't know why, but PCI likes to know it, and so do all the other security requirements. And the last one is a system integrity change. Typically for this one, we're talking about file integrity monitoring. If someone decides to swap out the FUP binary or an piece of application code, we need to know that immediately. Whether we act on it or not is a different thing, but we absolutely must trigger an alarm on it. So these are the 5 things we're going to go ahead and try to expose in our demonstration today, and I'll show you the data flowing to the Splunk in real time. Steve, our last slide here real quick. Okay, so my demonstration is going to include running the LAF macro. That's the log adapter filter macro that installs the common event format extensions to Merged Audit. We're going to set up the data input on the Splunk, and then we're going to take a brief look at incoming data in real time, and we'll set up some queries so that you can make sense of that data over on, excuse me, the Splunk. Let me preface this with, I am not a Splunk professional, I am a NonStop professional, but I have the ability to do this right out of the box. So first of all, let's go over to Splunk. This is where I end up in Splunk the minute I log on. I'm at the home screen. There's nothing fancy here. It's me at the dashboard. So this is a Splunk instance that has a little bit of data in it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a new monitor. This is how we get data to, this is how the Splunk actually receives data. So I click on add data. It's going to say, what do I want to do? I want to add a monitor. I'm not adding files, and I'm not building a forwarder into the Splunk. I'm actually building a monitor which will receive data in real time. So I'm going to choose TCP UDP. Nothing fancy there. UDP. I'm choosing a port that is not currently in use, that I believe is not in use. 514 is the industry standard. On this instance of Splunk, that port is already in use. So for the source name override, I'm going to call this XYGATE Merged Audit Splunk demo. Why not? I don't need to change anything else. I'm receiving UDP 7919. It's going to give all my messages this. Actually, I'm just going to call it Splunk XYGATE Merged Audit. That's easy enough. The only thing I need to change here is the source type. We're going to go with miscellaneous single line data because Splunk, like I said, by default, does not know what a NonStop is. But we're going to give it data in a format it can understand, so it can index all the data we send. We're not a well-known application, and we are not a Linux or Windows host, so we're going to say generic single line for our data. Review, UDP, port 7919, and my source name, and that's really all there is to it. So I'm going to submit that. I'm going to say start searching. This is going to tell Splunk to start listening for data on that port. So right now, if you'll notice, this data is all old. I'm going to take the all time off, and I'm going to go with a 5-minute window. So what you should see in here is nothing. Okay, so Splunk is up to date. There's nothing in there. I'm going to go over to the NonStop now. This is my instance of Merged Audit. It's owned by me. 37 Tama 2 is me. I'm just going to run. This is the log adapter filter macro. Run LAF. It's checking to make sure this is my instance of Merged Audit. We're going to use the LAF ARC, ArcSight log adapter filter. I'm going to have that changed to common event format. This was pioneered, like I said, originally by ArcSight, but it is now an industry standard. So I'm going to choose 1. It's going to ask for the IP address of my SIM. Do not use this address. It's internal to me. You will have your own. Oh, that's not right. It's 10.1.69.52. Oops, and I messed that up too. Give it a second. It'll figure it out. Let's break out of it. Oh. Run it again. 10.1.69.52. That's better. Right now it's trying to figure out which TCP/IP stacks I have available. We're going to go ahead and accept the default of ZTC0 because my machine's not very big and I happen to know that I'm allowed to use that TCP/IP stack. Come on, busy little system. Okay, so I'm going to accept the ZTC0. What port number? I put in 7919 on the target. I want to use UDP. And it says this might take several minutes, but it really doesn't. It takes several seconds. So what it's doing now is it's adding the filters to my filters file. And now the data should be sent to Splunk. And I'll show you. If you're familiar with Merged Audit, this is the filters file. This is what got added to my filters file. It put a new filter in. It's called it's the ArcSight adapter. It's got its own status. You can enable it or disable it at any time you feel like. It's got an action type of IP alert, which means it's using UDP. Here's the IP address I'm sending to, the port I'm sending to, and the transport I'm using. And here is where the data definitions are for my data. You should not have to modify that file, but if you wish to, you can. You can change the delimiters, you can change the field orders, you can change which fields are included, you can do whatever you wish. But by default, we have placed in there the data that should be received at the Splunk in the order expected with the key value pairs that Splunk is looking for. So now that that is up and running, let's go back over to Splunk and ta-da, you're already seeing data. And remember, this is only a 5-minute window. So you're seeing this data come from the System Galaxy. That's where I am over here. I'm on System Galaxy. So you can see the data is coming through in real time. So now that the data is here, and you can see it's here, I'm going to show you how we can make it usable. So it's being received at the Splunk, which is ultimately the biggest priority. But now I want to make sure that that data is usable and functional. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my window here to, let's go a couple of days. Let's go last 7 days. I have a bunch of data already in here because this thing's been running for a while. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of queries that you can run against it to make sense of this data. Like I said, now that's being received at the Splunk, the data needs to be usable. So this is a query that will go against my data and tell me, I don't have to put a not in there. This is going to see if there have been any changes to safeguard made in the last 7 days. Well, as you can see, I've got multiple systems feeding this. You can see all the changes to safeguard that were made in this list. Now, if I change this to the last, let's go last 30 minutes. Hopefully there's nothing in there. Okay, I don't see anything. So let's see something pop up in real time. I have to escalate privilege for this to work because I don't have access on my host. I'm using our access control product, which allows me to escalate privilege. So now I am super. So I'm going to go into safeguard and I'm going to alter, let's do an info safeguard. So I'm going to set something innocuous here so that we can see something change. So I'm going to go ahead and alter safeguard. I'm going to make it 40. And let's see if it comes through the Splunk. Once again, this should happen in pretty short order. And once again, just to make sure, I'm going to go back through and change it back before I get in trouble. Let's change that window down to a couple of minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. This is denied change to safeguard. I was not denied. My change actually made sense. So let's go back to it. Let's go back through and do it again as me. I didn't realize that that was the way I had it set up. I'll do the same change. So I get a security violation. Look at that. Comes up immediately. And here's the ones that actually did work. Oh, because this is just the name. But you're seeing the data in real time. And if I want to click on one of these, I can view the event and see the raw data in the log. It takes a second. It's going to go back through and find it. It's going to pull up the actual source data for me to view. If I go to events, it shows me the actual data. Safeguard config, change, my terminal ID, my user ID, all this. Here's me. So you can see everything in here. This is all the information that your auditors want to see in real time. And if you'll notice, or if you did notice, when I set this up for the statistics, you actually get to see the counts. So we've got the host name, we've got what changed, and we've got a count of the event. So that's just safeguard changes. So let's go look at escalation attempts. Again, if you know what you're doing on Splunk, this is trivial. I don't know what I'm doing on Splunk, and I can make this stuff work. So right here, you can see tackle 255, which I did for my privilege escalation earlier. It came from me. It was a success, and there was only one of them. If I change that window to a wider pattern, we'll see more of these during the day. And again, these are coming through in real time. So let's see if we can find a login initialization. These are all the things your auditors and your risk teams are going to want to see. And once again, we can throw this stuff out there in real time. I'm going to make the window on this one a little bigger, simply because I want to be able to see log initializations. So once again, you can see on here, we have log initializations on these dates at these times. So if I click on this, I can view events, and I can find out exactly what happened. Here's the event. Audit log init, super. It's a safeguard audit trail close or roll, and it comes right into my data collection. Once again, real time, simple, usable by anybody, and trivial to implement. So it took me what, even with me talking, it took me less than 10 minutes to get data over here and usable on the from the NonStop to the Splunk. So anyone can do it. It's necessary, it's easy, and let's go back to the last couple of minutes, and you can just see raw data here. I'm going to get rid of this. And now what you're looking at is my log in real time. So data is actually coming through in real time. You can see everything that's going on my host, or everything that's being sent across in real time by all the users. So you'll see the user ID in there. These are NonStop users. I can click to search them. I can change them. I can do whatever I want. But the fact of the matter is, anything I'm auditing can be reported on now from here. Here's an example of someone reading the user ID file. Once again, all the information you need in one place, and it took seconds for me to get to this. If anyone has any questions on the ability to do this from the NonStop side, like I said, it's nothing here. Or from the Splunk side, my team's happy to help at any time. Steve?
Thank you, Rob. That was very informative, and I learned more than I knew before we started this presentation. So thank you for that. I'm going to take over. So, like Rob mentioned, we're always here to help. This is our bread and butter. Merged Audit is what we do. Merged Audit is what we love. You already have it. There's nothing to sell here. We just want you to turn it on and start seeing the benefits from it right away. Splunk, or getting your data into Splunk or into another SIM, is your first step into your cybersecurity journey, because you'll get all of your raw data into Splunk, and that helps you address very critical PCI and other security compliance framework requirements. But as your security posture grows and you get a little more mature with your security program, you're going to want a little context around that data that's feeding into Splunk. Because Splunk, other than you doing what Rob did and having to write queries and program and having to correlate data together and provide context to it, Splunk's not going to know how to do that, doesn't have the information to do that, and it's going to require somebody to sit there full time and write these rules and patterns and signatures and what have you. So getting the data into Splunk, absolutely critical, absolutely necessary. Turn on Merged Audit, start sending that data over. But like I said, as your security program matures, you're going to want a little more breadth to that data, a little more intelligence and actionable type event pattern set data. And if you haven't seen our Security One presentation or heard about our Security One product, what Security One will do is sit between your NonStop and your Splunk environment, capture all of your raw data that gets sent from NonStop into Security One, correlate and contextualize that information, meaning it'll put an n number of events together and create a pattern for you and say, this pattern or this sequence of events means this, and then put that all in an envelope and send a single contextualized event to Splunk. Now, Splunk can consume that incident pattern and know exactly what's happening on your NonStop without somebody having to write rules or queries in Splunk to put all of this logic and intelligence together. So we'll have a presentation, or we've done a couple of webinars that talk about exactly that. If you want to find out more information, please reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to show you the capabilities of what you can do with Splunk and what you can do with Security One in the middle of that. That being said, please visit our website. We've got a ton of support and knowledge-based articles that show you how to take advantage of the data you're sending into Splunk, how to configure your NonStop side, and really how to really harness the power of that data that's going into Splunk. We've got a ton of YouTube videos that show how-tos. We post all of our webinars onto YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. We send out all of our announcements for future webinars, upcoming webinars. In fact, we've got an upcoming webinar either next month or I believe in early October in conjunction with SailPoint, talking about our NonStop to SailPoint integration. And we post a lot of outreach and articles and thought leadership on LinkedIn as well. So like I said, like Rob said, we're always here to help. We live and breathe this stuff, and we're just here to be your trusted security partner and help you become successful with these projects. So feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to jump in and help. That being said, thank you, everybody. I really, really appreciate your time this morning, this afternoon, or depending on where you are in the world, this evening. I'm going to leave a little bit of time right now for some Q&A. So we'll stop right here, and I'll go through the question and answer box and go through the Q&A. Okay. First question. If we're already sending data to a SIM like SecureOnyx or QRadar, and we want to send data to Splunk, would we be changing the current XMA filter file to add new filters for Splunk? Rob, you've done quite a bit of this. I'm gonna chuck this question over to you.
Okay, the simplest thing to do is the example I showed in the video. All you have to do is add the definitions for the Splunk in there, and by default, we will take any data that makes it through your merged audit and contextualize it with, was it a safeguard event? Was it a XYGATE event? Was it another event? And we'll do that based on the filters we include. That laugh arc file is on your NonStop already. You can go look at it. If you simply attach that and your Splunk IP address, it'll work just fine. There's really nothing else to it.
Okay, great. Second question, we're looking at Elasticsearch. Can merged audit send data to ELK? Is it the same process? Yes, you can use merged audit to send data to ELK directly. ELK can consume syslog, it can consume CEF format, and it's got a bunch of other more modern protocols that we can connect to. So you can absolutely, out of the box, connect nonstop to your ELK stack, start using data the same way Rob demonstrated with Splunk. Third question, can I change what gets sent to the SIM? Can I add and remove columns? Rob, I'm gonna send this one over to you as well.
Yeah, the data format coming out from the nonstop is completely customizable. We have built a set of default filters for the events we know about, but if you have unique events or you want to change the column order or the key value pairs, you may absolutely do that. Everything is in text from the nonstop. Like our other products, our config files are meant to be editable by you, the end user. There's nothing proprietary or magic in there. All you have to do is know how to use an editor and understand the file format on the nonstop, and obviously what you want to change, and you can do that with any message. You can do it with all of them. You can do specific headers, or you can do as little or as much as you want. It's completely customizable. And again, if anyone needs help specifically with modifying any of those messages, my team is on standby.
Great, thank you. Another question, how much data does a normal system send to Splunk? So what we would say to that is, ultimately, you want to send all of your nonstop data. You want to use merged audit to send all of your nonstop data over to Splunk. That way, you've got a 360-degree view of what's happening on your system, what's happening with your application. If you send a subset of that data, it gives you enough to possibly address compliance requirements or do a little bit of alerting. So you're only looking for target events, and you can write filters or you can write queries to alert you when certain events trigger. But you're missing a big piece of that pie as well if you don't send all of the events, because you won't be aware if certain events have an impact on other things that are happening on your system. So what I would say is start off with what you immediately need, but know that you want to get to the point where you're opening up the floodgates and sending every event from your system over to Splunk. That being said, though, Rob, you've done quite a bit of this out in the field. What have you seen customers, have you seen customers configure this to make maximum value out of that data?
I have two kinds of customers. Like you said, Steve, the customer that starts with only the events they really, really know need to go to the SIM, and then the customer that sends everything. The issue at any specific customer is really going to come down to how are you paying for your SIM? If you have a volume-based, if you're paying based on volume at your SIM, this could get expensive, right? A typical Linux infrastructure, let's say 50, 100 servers, might generate 1,000 messages an hour, something like that, if they're pretty verbose. A nonstop system with EMS and everything else collected could be generating that per second. Some of our customers, like I said, if they've got an unlimited all-you-can-eat license on Splunk, we'll send everything. If they've got a volume-based agreement with Splunk, though, they're going to send only the relevant security data. It really comes down to, well, like you said, Steve, what is necessary over there? And we can filter as little or as much of that as we need to get over. Obviously, the messages that are compliance related need to go. Anything else is icing on the cake. And it's trivial to set those up to include or exclude whatever you wish.
It's a very, very good point, because a lot of these SIM vendors, including Splunk, have moved to more of a data volume-based licensing. So you're paying by the drink. So the more data you send it, the more you're paying somebody like Splunk in license fees. Where we've also seen some relief with customers is when they introduce something like Security One in the middle of merged audit in their nonstops and Splunk, Security One does not charge by data volume. So we can take all of the raw events, take 10 events, for example, create a pattern out of that, and send a single contextualized incident to Splunk. So you're seeing an immediate savings in license fees there. Whereas you would have normally sent 10 events over to Splunk, Security One can take those 10 events, turn them into one incident, and now you send one incident over to Splunk. And you get the same value, if not more, because you're getting a complete contextualization of what those 10 events mean. Okay, a couple more questions here, actually. Great. You mentioned Ceph versus Leaf. Can you describe the differences? So Ceph, like we talked about, is the common event format, and the key word there is common. Most of the SIM vendors understand this format. Leaf is IBM QRadar specific. That's their own format. As far as the differences go, Rob, you've done quite a bit of this configuration of both systems. What are the intricacies you've seen there?
Ceph versus Leaf, they're both very similar. The bigger difference between Ceph and Leaf is the key value pairs and the fact that Leaf is extensible. So common event format has a set of key value pairs that are structured, rigid, and written. Leaf stands for extended event format. So QRadar lets you add specific extensions to that. But other than that, they're just text streams. And once you have the LAF adapter on the nonstop configured the way you need to, like I said earlier, you can add or subtract those fields or the delimiters all you want. So it comes down to massaging that into a format that's usable by your SIM. A lot of our QRadar customers will start off with Ceph and then extend it to Leaf when they figure out what they want to add to the payload. So the differences, like I said, are minor. Both of the formats are documented, so we can extend them any way we need. We support the Ceph right out of the box, and like I said, the Leaf is acceptable with minor tweaks. Takes minutes.
Great. Okay, we've got quite a few more questions here, so I love the interaction, guys. I love this type of feedback. Rob, this one's going to be for you as well. Is there any way to send data from an nscribe file or SQL MP table to Splunk?
Okay, so the short answer is yes. The longer answer is because that data is in a structured format or in a database object, we're going to have to get it out and move it. So if it's a standard product that we support, ITP Webserver, HLR, Safeguard, stuff like that, if it's in those, that data is in SQL or in nscribe tables. If you want to get that data over to the Splunk using Merged Audit, I've got a number of solutions for you. We'll find the one that works best for you. The simplest thing to do is to convert that data to an EMS format and forward it that way. Kind of a kludge, but like I said, with any of these examples, I have 100 solutions. That one's just one I can get off the ground working within 2 minutes of visiting your facility. But yeah, we have solutions for all that as well, especially if it's application specific and you want to massage the data, we can help you with that as well.
Great. Okay, and I've got two questions here that are very, very similar. If the messages are lost in transit due to environment disruption, are the messages queued up and sent again to Splunk? Yes, they are. This is a very, very good question because there's two methods, as Rob described, where you can send data from nonstop to Splunk. You can use UDP, you can use TCP, and there's other protocols we support, but ones out of the box that are easy to configure. And for this demo purposes, we use UDP because it's the simplest way forward. UDP is basically sticking something in the mail with no return address on it and hoping it makes it to the other side. If it doesn't, you'll have no visibility. If it does, you won't know. The other side will know if they received it or didn't receive it, but there's no acknowledgement back if you use UDP that the message ever made it to its destination. If you use TCP, that will have an acknowledgement back. You send the message out. If we don't receive the acknowledgement back, we'll keep retrying. So these events are actually stored in the database for that purpose. So the message will keep retrying, whether it's network connectivity issues or system load issues or whatever that's causing the disruption for that message not to receive the acknowledgement back. TCP will continue to retry until that message gets sent. That's why we have XMA data stored in the database for that purpose, or one of the purposes at least.
Hey, Steve, on that same instance, in a worst case scenario, let's say your Splunk instant cores and loses all its data. As long as we have the source data on the nonstop, we can replay that data going back as far as you wish, or as long as you have storage for. So if you had the data in Splunk and removed it from the queue on the nonstop because you're using TCP, but then something horrible happens at the target end, rewind a week or two and resend all that data fresh. It's not a problem.
Do you support Splunk's HTTP event collector? This is something that we're actually looking into for our 2021 roadmap. So we've got a couple of new collector types and connection types that we're exploring to even further our integration with Splunk. So this is absolutely something that we're actively looking into to see if we can bring into the product next year. Okay, I'm just going to make one more pass, see if there's any other questions. Justin, thank you for the kind words. I'm glad you found the webinar and the presentation useful. Please, like I mentioned, this will go up on our webinars page on zypro.com. This will go up on YouTube, so you can always reference it, share it around. If and your feedback is much appreciated. So if there's deeper content you want us to focus on next time, or if there's specific types of integrations or functionality that you want us to present on next time, please let us know. And with that, we've got our next webinar. It hasn't been scheduled yet, but keep an eye on our LinkedIn, keep an eye on our website. It's going to be in conjunction with SailPoint, who's the market leader in identity and access management solutions. And we're going to be talking about our NonStop to SailPoint integration with our XYGATE Identity Connector product. So with that, Rob, any last words?
No, Steve. My only take on this is if you've got Splunk or another SIM in your environment, push your reporting and compliance requirements over to them by sending that data over in real time, and you'll reduce the load and cost to your NonStop staff. So it's what we use it for, and it's what a lot of our customers are enjoying it for.
Great. Thank you. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Merged Audit is the HPE standard way to get any data off the NonStop over to Splunk or any one of these tools. So you already have it. Nothing to purchase, nothing to buy. Just reach out to us. We'll help you turn it on. We'll help you configure it, and you'll start seeing the value from it right away. So with that being said, thank you, everybody. I really, really appreciate your time this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, depending on where you are. We'll have a second webinar on the same topic later on today. So if you enjoyed it, feel free to join us again. Otherwise, thank you. Follow our website, follow our LinkedIn, follow our Twitter, and have a good day.